UFC Vegas 105 is not a great fight card on paper, but neither was UFC Vegas 104, and that fight card delivered. These mid-level, these mid-tier, these mediocre UFC Apex cards do tend to be very fun and exciting. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to break down the entire UFC Vegas 105 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and bets. If we take a look back at UFC Mexico, we had quite a bit of success. These are messages from premium members, DMs, tweets, emails, showing us how well we have done. The premium member on the left here said, "Hey guys, I made $6,000 in DraftKings Fantasy." The context he added was, "You guys are the best in this space for sports. I won big because of y'all. Definitely worth the membership. I am a member for life." To the right, we look for Odd His of the East. I don't know what the hell. Odd His of the East tagged us in his winning $4,000+ DraftKings ticket. If we take a look at the bottom right, that's another ticket saying $10 is the best money I could ever spend. If you go watch our UFC Vegas 105 live stream that we did Monday night, we got a super chat from Riff Raff. That super chat said, "Ever since you guys released your new optimizer, I have been plus money." And here's a look at that optimizer. What this does is it builds DraftKings lineups for you. You come in here, you make a few decisions because those are the terms of service. And after you make 3 small decisions, this will build lineups for you. We own this optimizer. We've developed it from scratch. We add features and functionality almost every single week based off of your feedback. You can access this optimizer. You can access the fight simulator and everything else that we have for $10. 10. And that's an entire month. Just go to wewantpicks.com, click become a member. You'll unlock all of it. What we have done, if you're watching this video for the fight breakdown side, not necessarily the DraftKings fantasy side, and it's all sort of new to you, well, we have added a beginner mode for this optimizer. And instead of expecting you to know what you're looking at, instead of expecting you to understand what ownership is and all these other things, it's going to walk you through a series of easy high-level questions and then build the lineups for you. The first question is going to be, who do you absolutely not want in your lineups? And let's say Robert Valentin. And then it's going to say, pick 3 fighters you're most confident in. Go ahead and pick 3 fighters that you're confident in. And then it's going to say, pick 3 underdogs you're confident in. Go ahead and grab 3 underdogs. And then it's going to ask you a few other questions and it's going to build the lineups for you. That could not be easier. And the reason we added this beginner mode is because I love MMA and I love DraftKings Fantasy. And it's not fair that everybody doesn't understand how it works. It can be confusing. So instead of only catering to the people that fully, truly understand, we will also cater to the people that just want to give it a try and want to understand it. And they love fantasy football. I want to do fantasy MMA. So we have lowered that barrier to entry and we have built this beginner mode with the TurboTax style intro. You can unlock every single thing right now. WeWantPicks.com, click become a member at the top. I've got a flight to catch, so we are going to fly through this video, and some of you are going to love it because you complain about how long I talk, and some of you are going to hate it because you love this sultry voice and looking at this Ben Affleck-esque face. And oddly enough, on that flight, I'm probably going to watch The Accountant number 1 because The Accountant number 2 is coming out soon. But let's go ahead and break down this fight card. We do have 13 fights, but we also have some pretty trash pricing, so we're going to need to be careful. And we open up that trash pricing with the Loma Lookboonmee at $9,500, but this fight order is a little different, so we're going to start with Vanessa Demopoulos. Vanessa Demopoulos, as we know, oh, look at this, an American flag. Isn't that interesting? Because she has the Greek flag on Tapology and I believe the UFC's website. She's American through and through. She's of Greek descent, but she's American through and through, representing your country. I'm the first one in my family born in this country. Nobody else in my family was born in America before me. Parents born in Italy, came over on a freaking boat. Then they had me. English wasn't even my first language. And you ask me where I'm from? America. Vanessa Demopoulos. She's going to come forward. She's going to stay in your face. She's going to box you up. She's going to get the hands going. She has no power whatsoever, but she's got plenty of cardio. She does win every close decision she's ever been in whatsoever. And she is capable on the ground. You're going to see she was just submitted by Jacqueline Amorim, but go watch that fight. Vanessa was basically working on a sweep. Jacqueline is putting her fingers inside of the glove. She was doing it. The camera caught it. It was very obvious. She told the ref, she's grabbing my glove. The ref didn't give a shit whatsoever. And then as Vanessa was working through techniques, Jacqueline caught her and submitted her. And that's a problem, obviously, because the rules were broken. It resulted in Vanessa Demopoulos losing that fight. But frankly, she might have had some fight karma coming her way because a few of these decisions were a little too close for her to get the nod. On the other side of that octagon is going to be Talita Alencar. Don't tell me, I'm going to say this every time we break her down, don't tell me Talita isn't just some white trash name. Is that not a white trash? How can you say it in any other accent? Talita, get your ass in here. You left the screen door open. Talita, get me one of them blue Cokes. If you know what a blue Coke is, then you might be a redneck. Talita Alencar, accomplished grappler. She was a big persona in the sport of grappling. She started her career as a pure grappler and worked her way into MMA. And she came over to MMA, had some success. If Talita gets it to the ground, she's very, very dangerous. Problem is, her striking sucks and her wrestling sucks. So getting it to the ground is not going to be the easiest thing in the world. But if she can, she's just a short little jacked up cannonball. If she can push you against the cage and drag you to the ground, you're going to be in some trouble. I mean, it's just that simple. Her striking is not very good. She'll bomb, but it's not good. Submissions are very good. Takedowns are also not good, but you can always catch somebody to scramble. You get somebody against the cage, you can just sort of bully. I think Vanessa Demopoulos wins this fight. She is priced as an underdog in DraftKings Fantasy, but she doesn't score very well. That's the problem. And I don't imagine Vanessa's going to be looking to offensively grapple. I think she's going to pot shot, try to piece up Talita in the pocket and just light her up and win with the striking. Because why would you take a very high-level BJJ practitioner to the ground? I'm going to pick Talita Alencar. No, sorry. I'm going to pick Vanessa Demopoulos. I do not think Talita Alencar is going to get it to the ground. I don't think she's going to have success. So Vanessa Demopoulos is the pick. I'm torn. $8,000 is not a lot of money to spend, but here, actually, let's just go back and look. Let's see what she's scoring. Yeah, I mean, 77, 60, 30. She scored 100 here in that decision, but she had a couple of takedowns. So I'm on the fence if I'm putting her in a lineup or not, but I do think Vanessa wins. And if you're a betting man, you will see that her odds are moving. She was the favorite a few days ago, and she's working her way to underdog. Then we have Victor Henry taking on Pedro Falcao. Victor Henry is getting a little old, right? He's 37 years old, but he still moves forward. He's still busy as shit. His nickname is La Mangasta. Dude, that's like the whitest looking dude I've ever seen. That's his nickname. He looks like a homeless white in front of an apartment complex. And his nickname is La Mangasta. The hell does that translate to? Anyway, that's the first time I'm seeing that. Victor Henry does look homeless, but he moves forward. He's clearly well fed because he's got cardio, he's got pressure, he's got pace, he moves forward. He'll box you up, he'll look to strike. His takedown defense is pretty good. He is wildly inconsistent though. Because let's look here. Oh, he beats Hani Barcelos in his UFC debut. At this time, 2022, Hani wasn't quite old just yet. And you know who could not beat Hani Barcelos? That minus 1,200 absolute clown shoe, Peyton Talbot. But Victor Henry beats Hani, defends the takedowns, gets busy, lands 181 significant strikes. Then he loses to 40-year-old Rafael Assunção. It was like a night and day performance. It made no sense whatsoever, and you can see the pricing. And he's had several inconsistencies. The Bajarat fight, that was a no contest because of a nut shot, but he was actually looking really good in that fight. The Yaya fight, he looked pretty good, but another old man. He keeps getting matched up with old men, but now he is the old man. He was just submitted by Charles Jourdain, but you can see here he had 4 takedowns. He ended up getting caught. He is fighting Pedro Falcao. Pedro Falcao stepped up on short notice against Victor Hugo. Literally 3 days notice. But that didn't stop him from pushing the pressure and pushing the pace. He had 7 minutes of control time in a fight that he took on 3 days notice. He set the pace. He stayed in his face. Style-wise, he's a grappler. He wants to drag you to the ground. He wants to work in some submissions. He does have some power in his hands, and I think that he thinks he's a striker, but his striking's not very good, right? It's sloppy. It's big. He's just wah, wah, wah. But it's sloppy striking. I do think Victor Henry wins this fight. This is a close fight. I think Pedro's a very solid underdog here, and if you're on the Pedro side, don't let me convince you otherwise. $7,400 might make some sense. I am going to pick Victor, and I will have Victor in some lineups. But when you're in the optimizer, let's go back to standard mode. When you're in the optimizer, I would go to Victor and I would limit his exposure. I would limit it below 100%, and I would raise the minimum exposure on his opponent because I think his opponent can get some stuff going. So if you go over to Pedro Falcao and we're going to raise his minimum exposure, well, now I'm going to make sure that I have Pedro in some lineups and make sure I don't have Victor in too many lineups because I think that's a razor thin fight. You can access that optimizer at WeWantPicks.com. If we take a look at the next fight, now we have what might be the most overpriced person on this card. I love Loma Lookboonmee. I think Loma Lookboonmee wins this fight, but $9,500 for somebody that has only gotten to that number one time ever is absurd. She has only gotten to that number one time in her UFC career, and there's a lot of wins in here. Loma Lookboonmee is tiny. She's 5'1". She is a very good Muay Thai striker. And over time, she has developed grappling. She took down Elise Reed twice. She took down Denise Gomes 4 times. She took down Bruna Brazil 1 time in her last fight, and Bruna Brazil is big as shit. And little tiny Loma wasn't a problem. And the reason I'm highlighting the takedowns here is because Loma started her career as a striker, a Muay Thai striker, and a very good one at that. And then she got bullied. She got taken down. She got sort of pushed around by Lupe Godinez and said, I need to learn some other skills. And she started learning the other skills. I mean, she had some takedowns before that when she took down Sam Hughes a bunch of times. And Loma Lookboonmee doesn't have an easy fight here. A lot of people think it is an easy fight because Istela Nunes has lost 4 in a row. She doesn't have a single win officially in the UFC. She is 0 for 4 in the UFC, 1 4 in her last 5. But Istela Nunes is a striker. She's a striker. She has a long professional kickboxing career. She has worked her way into the world of MMA. And that has been an issue for her because she's not defending the takedowns. She's getting pushed around. She's getting bullied. If you look at this Dudikova loss, she broke her arm in that fight. Like literally that fight was 2 minutes, braces on a takedown, her arm snaps in half. So you can't go with that. The reason I'm going to pick Loma is because Loma can wrestle. And she's probably going to need to wrestle or want to wrestle against Istela. Istela's a very good striker. Istela has power. Estela's bigger here. I do think this goes to a decision. And we just saw the numbers. Loma Lookboonmee going to a decision does not pay for her salary. You cannot put in your lineup. If you're placing a bet, then I think Loma makes a lot of sense because I think she will win this fight and I think she'll get some takedowns. If we take a look at Daniel Frunza, and he is taking on Rhys McKee, you're going to make another snap decision. And you're going to say, Rhys McKee sucks. This guy can't win in the UFC. He's dog shit. Well, Daniel Frunza isn't exactly a proven entity. He is making his UFC debut. He's a solid striker. He's got good pressure. He's got good power. He's got leg kicks. He does bomb away on the feet. He continues marching forward no matter what's coming back his way. And the reason I'm emphasizing all of that is because this is Las Vegas. And we have seen time and time again, especially in the last 6, 8, maybe even 12 months. Las Vegas doesn't give a shit about your wrestling or your cage control. The only thing they care about is who's bleeding and who's trying to win this fight. And if Daniel Frunza is the one moving forward, just absolutely bombing away, throwing crazy, trying to win this fight, the judges may like that. But he is fighting Rhys McKee. And Rhys McKee is winless in the UFC. He's not the most handsome man in the world. But Rhys McKee can fight. He's a good fighter. He's just had a fucking shit run of luck. His UFC debut was against Khamzat Chimaev in peak 2020 Fight Island UFC. This is when Khamzat won 4 fights in a day and a half, some dumb shit. He came in, he didn't land a single strike. Khamzat ripped him to the ground, finished him, done. Then he loses a decision to Alex Morono. That's a tough fight for your second UFC fight ever. Then he takes 3 years away from the UFC. He comes back, he gets Angelo. That's another tough fight. Close decision. And now he just lost to Chidi Njokuani in another close decision. But what we did see in this fight is this 7 minutes and 41 seconds of control time. That's that cage control. He was working into a grappler. Chidi hits like a freight train. Chidi's dangerous. Rhys tried to neutralize that. Chidi cracked Rhys a few times, and Rhys just ate it. Very durable. So my take on this fight is tricky because I do think Rhys is very durable, and he can eat whatever Daniel Frunza sends his way, and potentially grind Daniel against the cage, take Daniel down. Rhys is a finisher. Rhys has plenty of finish wins. So I think Rhys is a phenomenal underdog, but I do think Daniel's just such forward pressure heavy, such like a bomber. I think he can grind. If it ends up in a decision, I think they'll give it to Daniel because of the forward pressure and the bombing away. If it doesn't go to a decision, it's a fucking coin flip. I'm going to pick Daniel officially, but this is another situation. This is another situation where you want to go to the optimizer and you want to raise and lower the fight exposure to ensure that you have a little bit of access to both of these guys. The optimizer will automatically keep opponents out of lineups. If you want to change that, you can change that. But it's going to automatically not put Rhys and Daniel in the exact same lineup over and over again. What it will do, based off of your criteria, is say, okay, this lineup should have Rhys, this lineup should have Daniel. And then when you have multiple lineups, if you're just going to enter a few, pick your favorite ones. If you're going to enter them all, then throw them all in there. But the pick is going to be Daniel. DraftKings fantasy exposure. I mean, Rhys McKee at $7,600, a proven guy to finish. Not in the UFC, because he can't win in the UFC, but neither has Daniel. But he's proven that he can finish fights outside the UFC. And this is literally the first time in his entire career he is fighting a guy, in his entire, UFC career, he's fighting a guy that's not an established UFC entity. That's Rhys McKee. Then we have Dione Belbita, and she is taking on Dione Barbosa. Listen, I'm going to speed this up. Dione Belbita is a decent striker. She'll come forward. She's got good hands, but she has no power whatsoever. She is not even a little bit dangerous, not even the slightest bit dangerous. And in her last fight against Molly McCann, she was picked up, slammed, and armbarred. It was embarrassing. And she's fighting Dione Barbosa. Dione Barbosa is kind of a tank. She's going to move forward, bomb away, throw the strike, stay in your face, and then rip you to the ground. She is a judo practitioner, so don't expect her to shoot a double, but do expect her to push you against the cage, toss you from there, trip you from there, bomb to get close, clinch, and then headlock or toss. Dione Barbosa is going to rip Dione Belbita to the ground, potentially finish her. I think Dione Barbosa should be in your lineup at $9,400. It's a lot of money to spend on a woman. I fully understand that. But I think Dione Belbita is fully checked out. I think she's just shown up for her last fight, her last check. She's already talking about what she's doing her post-MMA career. I think it's just a check. It's her last opportunity to make a buck. And I think Dione is going to be worth the money because of those dynamics. Then we have, we did Lookboonmee, we did Frunza, Belbita. Then we have Davey Grant. Davey Grant is fighting Daniel Willycat Santos. Dame Dangerous is this fucking guy's nickname. Davey Dangerous Grant. Relax, bro. Not with that face. Not with that face. No. Like, you look dangerous at a bar. Like, if I'm a girl, I'm going to cover the top of the cup. That's where you look dangerous. Nobody's ever looked at Davey Grant outside of a bar setting to make sure their cup was covered that thought Davey was dangerous. You don't see that guy in the story like, dude, that guy looks dangerous. Get the fuck out of here. Hey, neighbor. That's what you get. Hey, neighbor. Tell me he doesn't look like, hey, neighbor. That's not his accent. He's not from around these parts. Davey Grant, busy striker. He's not dangerous. Davey Grant, I will objectively say he's not dangerous. He's had 2 flashes of power. We've seen it twice. Outside of that, he's not very dangerous. What he is, though, is very durable. What he will do, though, is move forward, stay in your face, go from striking to grappling. He actually started his career as a grappler, and it's the story as old as time. Takedowns in this fight, takedowns in this fight, takedowns in this fight, takedowns in this fight, but got a knockout. Ooh, got a knockout here. You're never going to see a takedown out of me again. And that is a story as old as time. But he is old as shit. Speaking time, Davey Grant's old. He's 40 years old. But he is durable. We saw in the last fight. He got dropped. He rose to the occasion, recovered, won that fight with sheer volume, determination, and preparation. He is taking on Daniel Willycat Santos. Maybe it's Willie, I don't know. Daniel Santos is a shoot-a-box fighter, and he's the stereotypical shoot-a-box fighter. Obviously, Mel Costa is not a stereotypical shoot-a-box fighter, but for the most part, 80% of that gym has the exact same haircut, has the exact same fight style, which is come forward insanely aggressive, chase a finish, get smacked to shit along the way because you have no striking defense whatsoever, then fade because you don't have the cardio, get taken down, get out-wrestled. If you don't get the finish early, then a shoot-a-box guy is probably going to get grinded out and not have the closest fight after that. Daniel Santos could absolutely finish Davey Grant. He is a dangerous striker, as I mentioned, and he has very good submissions. Daniel Santos could also come forward, have some success early. Davey Grant could weather that storm, come back, and just will his way to a win with pressure, volume, and determination. I actually think Davey Grant's going to make some sense here. And I may have some exposure in my DraftKings fantasy lineups because he is going to pour that pressure on. He has to survive the first round. He has to. And he might be able to. That's the one thing that concerns me is, will he survive that first round? But Daniel Santos is not very busy. We're looking at almost 2 full years away. So Davey Grant is going to be the pick. And I trust that old son of a bitch to just, neighbor, his way to a win. Then we have Ode Osbourne and Luis Gurule. Luis Gurule making his UFC debut. And what could happen in 2025 when you have an undefeated guy making a UFC debut? 2025 has been the year of undefeated guys getting absolutely smoked. Smoked. It's been the year of prospects getting smoked. Underdogs have been ruling supreme in 2025, and this fight does fit the bill, so I would be a little careful here. But Luis Gurule's light on his toes, good forward pressure striker. He's going to bounce around. He'll leap in to throw with power. He's aggressive on the feet and on the ground. He's got okay power. He's in good enough shape to push that pace for a full 15 minutes. If he gets it to the ground, lots of top pressure. He does have submissions. He's mostly looking to bully you to the ground and try to finish you from there. He is taking on tried and true UFC entity Ode Osbourne. You're going to see, he's lost 4 of his last 5. He's lost 3 in a row. Oh, okay. Well, Isu Almabayev is very good. Paulo Fiallo, very good submission guy. He almost broke Makayev's knee in half. And this lazy boy Rodriguez loss, that was actually kind of bullshit. I thought he won that fight. The problem is you lose 3 in a row. You lose 4 of your last 5. You haven't had a win in 2 years, and that was razor thin against Charles Johnson. You start to doubt yourself. You're not quite the guy you used to be. And now you're fighting to win. Sorry, let me back up. Now you're fighting to not lose. You're not fighting to win. When you're fighting to win, you'll take chances. When you're fighting to win, you'll be a little more aggressive. You'll sit on the punches a little more. You'll try to make something happen. When you're fighting to not lose, because you don't want to get cut and you want to keep your job, all of a sudden you're tentative. You don't quite let it go. You're a little more defensive than offensive. And if you get a young, hungry guy like Luis Gurule, who is a pressure striker, and you're tentative because you're trying not to lose instead of trying to win, that could be a problem. I think Luis Gurule is going to win this fight. I think ultimately Ode Osbourne has been dealt a bad hand. He's a good fighter. He's a talented guy. We saw that. He almost finished Lazy Boy in the first round. But then he faded and he was quickly out-grappled. Luis Gurule has grappling. Luis Gurule has very good cardio. Luis Gurule is also a pressure striker. I think Luis gets it done, but I would be very, very careful in this fight because these prospects have been getting absolutely smoked. Then we have the shortest guy in the division. We have Torrez Finney. And he is taking on Robert Valentin. Torrez Finney, it's unfortunate there's no picture here. If you're trying to picture what he looks like, do you know that meme or that video? It's probably 10 years old at this point, where a couple of buddies are going to, I assume, a Men's Warehouse, and the little guy, he's like this, he's all jazzed up, and the tailor comes over, does a quick fake measure, and then he pulls a child's suit out of a bag, and he shows it to them, and then they all have a very good laugh because bros will be bros, and they'll have a good time, and they can laugh at themselves. Torrez Finney looks like that dude, but fucking jacked. There you go. Tiny little guy. Just a tiny little guy. He's listed at 5'8". There's no fucking way Torrez Finney's 5'8". What Torrez Finney is, though, honestly, it seems pretty sweet. And I hate bashing him for his height. My bad, guy. He can't control that. What he can control, though, is the time and effort he has put into the gym. Not only is he jacked, these are not show muscles. They're not fake, hollow muscles. These are real muscles, and he's got plenty of cardio. And there's a distinction there. How many jacked fighters have we seen that fade very quickly because they can't possibly get enough oxygen and blood flow into all of that mass? Not Torrez. Torrez has plenty of cardio, and he needs it because he's going to push a wrestling pace. He'll come in, he'll bomb away, he hits like a freight train. He'll wrestle, he'll shoot wild blast doubles, run right through you, and he will continue to do that over and over and over again. Plenty of cardio. Durable guy, he's got no neck to choke. He's short and compact, which actually is an advantage in a lot of MMA fights. Sure, it's not great for the striking if you can't manage the range well, but it is fantastic to get lower on somebody, get under their hips, shoot a takedown, run right through him, and you're very hard to take him down because how the hell are you going to get under his hips? He's taking on Robert Valentin. Robert Valentin just lost in the Ultimate Fighter finale. This is not the symbol for a pharmacy. This is his native land. Robert Valentin lost to Ryan Loder in the Ultimate Fighter finale. And you're going to see, a KO loss and whatever. That was a good, fun back and forth fight. His opponent, Ryan Loder, was a Division I All-American wrestler. Robert didn't give a fuck. He had his back. He ended up on top several times. He was winning scrambles. He was laying it all out there. Robert is one of the most creative and dangerous guys in the division. If you go back to The Ultimate Fighter, dude got rocked, tossed a headlock, and then somehow finished on the ground with a key lock, but he used his leg. Robert Valentin is insanely creative. He's dangerous on the feet. He's dangerous on the ground. He is willing to exchange. He's not afraid of shit. And I basically said he's a hybrid, not accomplishment-wise, but he's a hybrid of like Yuri Prochazka and Dricus. He's sloppy. He's crazy. He's willing to fight. He's tough as hell. Robert Valentin's not a guy that you're going to get out of there very easily, but I do think Torrez Finney's build is wildly beneficial. I don't see where the success is going to come from on the Valentin side. I think Torrez is going to come forward, bomb away, get the takedowns, and just be too heavy, too thick, too much, too fast, too good at cardio, and I think he just beats on, grinds down, and potentially finishes Robert Valentin. So Torrez Finney probably should have some exposure in your lineups. Then we have Brad Tavares, and he is taking on Gerald Meerschaert. This is going to be tricky because he only has one win in his last 5 fights, and that was against old-ass Chris Weidman, and he only scored 58 points in that win. Brad Tavares probably wins this fight. I'm not going to have him in my lineup. Brad Tavares, as we all know, let me just highlight his record here. Phil Baroni. That dude's in jail for murder, isn't he? Didn't he murder his wife? He was sweet back in the day, though. Let's go to when you're going to start recognizing games. Lorenz Larkin, phenomenal striker. Yoel Romero. Tim Boach, at one point in time, was great. Nate Marquardt, at one point in time, was great. Robert Whittaker, former world champion. Manjales. Elizu Todoro. This is the dude that went to Pride, got a bunch of wins. His career took off. Unless I'm thinking of the wrong person. Oh, I'm thinking of Sudoku. Anyway. Todoro was good. Talis Laites, very good. Jotgo, decent striker. Izzy Azusanya. Shabazian. Carlos Jr. left the UFC, went to the PFL, and won $1 million. Dricus du Plessis. Anderson, was this Anderson Silva? No, that's Bruno Silva. Chris Weidman. Like, he's fought literally everybody. And you can see he's been in the UFC at this level for 15 years. He's a tried and true entity. He's got no quit. He's never going to back up. He's not a pussy. He's going to get in your face. He's got that Hawaiian fighting spirit. He's not particularly dangerous at this point in his career, and he is starting to fade a little bit, but that's what happens when you're fighting at this level for 15 straight years. He's taking on Gerald Meerschaert. These guys are the same age, but I would argue Gerald at this point, he's not insanely durable, but he doesn't have the wear and tear that Brad Tavares does. He is coming off that loss to Renier de Reder, where he was submitted in a back and forth sort of roll around the ground kind of fight. But Gerald Meerschaert, every fight is exactly the same. Watch the Shabazian fight for a stereotypical Gerald Meerschaert fight. He was getting pieced up. He was getting lit up. His face was a punching bag. Then Shabazian started to feel himself. They ended up in a grappling exchange, and Gerald Meerschaert submitted him. That's it. That's the breakdown. Gerald loses striking exchanges, and when people are dumb enough to go to the ground with him, he submits them. Sometimes. Brad Tavares wins this fight. I think it's 99% standing. I don't think there's a finish, and I don't think Brad Tavares is going to cover his salary. Then we have Kennedy Nzechukwu taking on Martin Buday. I honestly think Kennedy's going to win this fight. The problem is, I think people are just underestimating Martin Buday. The other problem is Kennedy Nzechukwu doesn't fully commit. Kennedy Nzechukwu can be tentative, can be gun shy at times. $9,200 is a lot of money to spend. Like, yes, he just finished 2 people in a row. One was a very finishable Lucas Bresky. The other is Chris Barnett after a hurricane blew through his house and he hadn't fought in a very long time. And wasn't this the one with the knee injury? Is this the one where Chris Barnett would like stomp his knee and like hurt it immediately? Before that, he lost to Ovince St. Preux as a tremendous favorite because it was a staring contest. And that's the problem with Kennedy Nzechukwu. He will end up in staring contests at times. I do hope that this recent string of finish wins will open his hands up a little bit. He's taking on Martin Buday. Martin Buday is a pretty good striker in his own right. People hate him. And I get it. When he lost to Shamil Gaziev, not the best look. And then he came out here. He beat Andrei Arlovski in what felt like, I obviously had Buday in the safety parlay, so I was a little nervous. It felt like a razor-thin fight, and maybe that was just my nerves impacting my ability to critically think. But that felt closer than it should have. Martin Buday might be a bit overrated. He came into the UFC, got a couple wins in a row, lost to the big man, the bridge troll, Then they gave him Andre, and he bounced back a little bit. So we're going to find out what trajectory he's going to be on. But Martin, while he does have some power in his hands, not nearly as dangerous as Kennedy and Nzechukwu. Martin's got decent footwork. He's got good volume at 5 significant strikes landed per minute, but he is a bit hittable. Kennedy hits hard. Kennedy is big. And if we have this new version of Kennedy where he's more active and it's not a staring contest, Kennedy should run through Martin Budai. I'm going to pick Kennedy, and at that price point, if he gets a finish, then he's obviously worth it. Then we have Cortavius Romius taking on Chang Ho Lee. This is going to be a pick your side kind of fight because whoever wins probably scores pretty well. Chang Ho Lee's a well-rounded guy. He calls himself the Korean Khabib, but he doesn't wrestle as much as you would like him to. He prefers to move forward. He prefers to strike. He'll close that distance by literally just marching forward like 1, 2, 1, 2. Then if there's some grappling, maybe he'll get things going. He'll bomb an overhand and shoot a takedown. His takedowns are not very good. His takedown defense is also not very good. He does have very good submission defense. He's got an okay get-up game. Chang Ho Lee, I know he's a guy that the UFC wants to do well. He's in a market that makes a lot of sense for them. I just don't think Chang Ho Lee is that guy, which is why I am on the Cortavius Romius side. Cortavius, while he did lose to Gaston Bolanos in his UFC debut, he is a solid grappler in his own right. He's got decent striking. He's got good power. He's got heavy kicks. His combinations aren't spectacular. He tends to throw one at a time instead of multiple, but he does throw hard and he moves forward. I think his takedowns are better. I think his takedown defense is better. I think Cortavius wins this fight, and he is at $7,800, which might make sense for you in your lineup. My only concern here is this fight might literally come down to who shoots first. And if Cortavius shoots first, then Cortavius is going to have success. If Chang Ho Lee shoots first, then Chang Ho Lee may have some success. I think it's going to come down to who shoots first, but I do trust Cortavius. He's got some dog in him. We've seen that. We saw it in this fight. I think Cortavius is going to win. Then we have Joanderson Brito taking on Pat Sabatini. This fight has trap written all over it. This is a very tricky fight. Joanderson Brito is one of the most dangerous guys in this division. He was on a 5-fight finish streak. Knocked out Andre Feely, submitted Alexander. I mean, Weston Wilson, that's a joke. But then subbed Jonathan Pierce after getting taken down and told to get up, boy. He smokes Jack Shore. Is that when he kicked his leg until you saw the bone? And then he just lost a close one to William Gomez. But there were some upsides to that William Gomez loss. We saw the cardio of Joanderson Brito. There's only 29 significant strikes, but I promise you, he was bombing away. He did have 3 takedowns, almost 8 minutes of control. I thought he won that fight, and if that was anywhere else, I think he would have gotten the nod. But it was a typical Joanderson Brito fight. It just didn't get the typical ending. He moved forward, chasing a finish, didn't quite get that finish. But William Gomez is elusive. Pat Sabatini's not quite as elusive. We saw him get knocked out by Diego Lopez. We saw Damon Jackson run across the cage and knock him out as well. His 2 UFC losses are by knockout. So the logical conclusion is Pat Sabatini's chinny as shit and Joanderson Brito hits hard. And that's not a wild conclusion to get to, but the piece missing from that is that Pat Sabatini is also insanely dangerous. Pat Sabatini has incredible grappling. If he gets you to the ground, you are going absolutely nowhere. You are not getting up. Whether he submits you or not, that's on you, but you're not getting up. Pat Sabatini, if he gets the wrestling going here, could absolutely play spoiler, blow up everybody's lineups, blow up everybody's betting tickets. Pat Sabatini is dangerous as shit and can win this fight. Joanderson Brito may come out, swing way too hard from the hips, and Pat could just shoot a takedown, get him to the ground, and cause very real problems for him. Or, just like Diego Lopez and Damon Jackson, if Joanderson Brito comes out hot and fast and gets in his face, he can put him out and put him out early. This fight is very hard to pick. I think these odds are far too wide. I am going to go on the Joanderson Brito side. I'm trying lately to not overcomplicate things. And I do think introducing, well, Pat could do this, Pat could do that, kind of complicates it. And we're just going to stick with Joanderson's one of the most dangerous guys in this division. We just saw Joanderson had cardio, so let's go ahead and assume that he could do more of the same here. But if you're on the Pat side, absolutely go for it. Again, in the optimizer, have some exposure to both of those gentlemen. And then we have the main event of the evening, Lerone Murphy taking on Josh Emmett. I'm going to pick Lerone. And I'm going to pick Lerone because Lerone is a very good striker. Lerone is a technical guy. Lerone has proven in his last 2 fights that he can be durable. He also showed us that he can get in some trouble. He got knocked down by Barbosa. He got knocked down by Dan Ige. He recovered. So you like to see that he is not a quitter and he will work through, and he ended up getting those wins. But you hate to see that, like, maybe that chin's starting to go. Lerone Murphy should win this fight. Technical striker, will stay on the outside. He doesn't really have a ton of power, but he will shoot you up. He will move. He will get out of the way and then blast you. He will come forward at times. He'll manage the range really well. He is a very, very good striker. I'm going to say he's dangerous, but honestly, we haven't really seen that once the level of competition went up. He's got good takedown defense, good scramble skills. He should win this fight. And if we're looking at his last 5-round fight, against Barbosa, he scored 155 points. He did have 4 takedowns, though. I don't know if he's going to wrestle in this fight or need to wrestle in this fight. But he landed 220 significant strikes. The question is, was that an all-time performance? Or is that who he's going to be here as well? He is taking on Josh Emmett. I know a lot of you love Josh Emmett and you're picking Josh Emmett because of what he just did to Bryce Mitchell. I mean, he fucking punched that dude in the face immediately. It was the loudest punch knockout I've ever heard. We've heard loud kick knockouts. We've heard loud slam knockouts, obviously. This was the loudest straight punch to the face knockout I have ever heard. And I've seen every single event when it aired all the way back in the 90s. Josh Emmett is basically only that now. That's basically all who he is. He started as a high-level wrestler. Then he knocked a few people out. And now that's all he is. That's it. That's it. He has 1 takedown in the last 4 years, 1 takedown. You can piece him up at distance. That's exactly what Lerrone's going to do. The one and only question is, will Josh Emmett land that big power shot? We saw Dan Ige land a power shot. We saw in a weird type situation, we saw him get cracked in the fight before that against Barbosa. I do not think Josh Emmett's going to land the power shot because Dan Ige is a good striker. Dan Ige can threaten with the grappling. Dan Ige throws in combinations and he moves really well. Barbosa is a phenomenal striker. So he can hide some of these power shots. And Josh Emmett is not. Josh Emmett is going to woof, bomb punches, launch him. I think Josh Emmett is going to be too obvious, throwing from too far away, a little too slow, and Lerone Murphy's going to get the win. And I probably will put Lerone in my lineup because I'm very confident in him to win. And his last 5-round fight, he scored a ton of points. Guys, that's the lightning quick breakdown because I need to catch a flight. And before then, I've got to take a shit and take a shower. Check out the tools. WeWantPicks.com. We have the optimizer. We have the line movement tracker for betting people. We have the prop hunter for betting people. We have the data analyzer for anybody that wants to do their own research. Specifically to DraftKings, we have a cheat sheet. We have a simulator. The fight simulator is going to simulate fights 100,000 times. I click this button. It is literally pulling in historical DraftKings information. It's pulling in grappling stats and striking stats. And it's simulating every single fight on this card 100,000 times. And it's giving you the results of those simulations. And now you can run through, look at different information, and you can go ahead and build the DraftKings lineups off of that information. Every single one of these tools is one single package. Whether you're here for the picks, whether you're here for the bets, whether you're here for the artificial intelligence, whether you're here for the fantasy, whether you're here just to support us because you love the boys and what the boys are doing, it's $10 for all of it. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. You'll unlock this card, UFC 314, UFC Kansas City, and the card after that. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top.